Tim Petrowich here for Dateline Marion, and our guest, as normal, is Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. And it's a place we wanted to be. We wanted to be having a Week 10 interview, Coach, as the Wildcats have qualified for the playoffs. Big win, 50-38 over Mattoon last week. Let's talk a little bit about that game before we head into our first-round playoff matchup. Man, what a strange game, a wild game. And we talked about this a little bit. That's something that, there's some other games on your schedule that traditionally have turned into wild games. The Althoff game is one, the Cardinal game is one. Every time you play Mattoon, it seems like something different happens.
It does, whether it's here or there. We've had some great games against them, exciting games, but they'll make a coach old in a hurry. I mean, we've 2002, we had a rainy, wet field, and just the kids were splashing around. It was just awful, heavy rain. And I think we were up 6-3 very, very late and fumbled, trying to run the clock out. They recovered it, scored in 4 plays, and won the game 10-6. And we had a game up there in the playoffs in 2007, as you know, that was just a wild game involving all kinds of crazy stuff. And played them here, I think 12 or 13, 2012, 2013. We were down 2 or 3 touchdowns at halftime and came back and won the game. And then this game comes along, and how do you describe this game? We're up 14-0, and then they would take the 17-14 lead, and everybody scores in the third quarter, a lot.
Yeah.
Big plays, and then the game settles a bit in the fourth quarter, and it's just it's exciting, I know that, but it's we had to work, and so did they, and I think you saw 2 teams, I think, desperately fighting to stay alive for the playoffs.
One of the things in the game, I noticed you talked about the third quarter, 4 scoring plays in the third quarter of more than 50 yards, and 7 for the game total. That includes the punt return by X, and then their 85-yard hook and ladder play that got them a touchdown.
Right.
And then 7 total plays at 50 yards or more that scored.
It's a bunch, and Caden had a couple of those, and it was just a wild game where, especially the start of the third quarter, we scored from the first play from the scrimmage that we had. They scored, I think, on their first play from the scrimmage. I believe that's right.
Yeah, it was.
And so there's just a few seconds off the clock to start the third quarter, and both teams have already scored. So we knew it was going to be a long night. We knew it was going to be a night where we had to keep our heads there and keep scoring and give our defense the best chance they could have. And field position became key with protecting the football. And so it was a really exciting game. It was a fun game to be a part of. But at one time I felt like, Tim, we were really in control of the ball game. 14-0 with the ball, had a drive going, and I think we kind of let them back in the game a little bit. But kids are resilient. They battled all year long, and they've fought against a lot of adversity to get us in this situation.
Let's talk about Caden a little bit. Huge game for him. He just seems to get better.
Right.
19 carries, 241 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 65 and 66 yards. One of the things that I found interesting to me, you guys didn't or couldn't run a whole lot in the first half, but then all of a sudden I looked, after his second run, he had 4 carries for 160 yards.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like that a lot. I think early on in a game, both teams are kind of feeling each other out a little bit. And we went to some tighter stuff where he was getting his big runs from. We felt we were moving the ball in our spread stuff pretty well, but we like to mix it up a little bit. We got into the tight stuff, and he popped a couple of long runs, and we knew we had found something.
And it was pretty much, you said, the same play both times, and obviously the same result. I think they went different directions. One, he went to the right, one, he went to the left. But once he got through the hole, it was like he was past the secondary, and it's hard to catch him.
He's fast, and he's a very explosive runner. He's a physical runner for a guy that's not that big, but he's very, very strong. And he's become a good pass receiver for us. He does a good job blocking. I mean, he does a lot of things well, and he's a complete football player. He really has had a good year, and I love to watch how he's improved as the season's progressed.
A couple of things that we won't talk about with X, but there was a couple of things that were impressive to me. One, how in the world he caught the one pass. We talked about that. Looked like the kid from Mattoon dove in and picked it off, and it must have broken some fingers off because Jake zipped it in there pretty good, and all of a sudden X had it, he's running for a touchdown. Another play that was, to me, showed a lot, and shows the way he's kind of run the ball and a lot of the way he's played defense. You guys had 2nd and goal, I think, at the 1 or something like that, and got a holding penalty on the touchdown play.
Right.
Got backed up 10 yards, and then the next play, he ran the ball, and he was hit at about the 10-yard line, and he just bulldozed people all the way down to the 1.
Yeah.
Just kind of the way he's turned this season, what he's turned this season into is just taking charge and being very physical.
Yeah, I agree. And we ran the film back several times during film session just to show his body lean at the goal line. We talked about smelling the goal line. I mean, he smells it, and you can tell by his body lean, his pads over his toes. I mean, he's coming downhill runner, and that's tough to tackle. And he hits it. He hits that hole 100 mile an hour. And that's what you've got to do down there at the goal line. You know, it's not a time to stutter step and dance and move. It's time to, you know, get down there and get some yardage and break a few tackles and be a physical runner. And he did that for us several occasions. I know exactly the play you're talking about, because you score and get taken back to the 11-yard line. You're thinking, oh, we're going to miss an opportunity. And no, that next play, we got back down where we were and knew we had a good shot to score then. But you're right, he's done a lot of good things this year, but that certainly was the style of running that I think you got to have in the red zone.
So another player we talked a little bit about after the game was Malcolm Berry. We know he's had some injuries, you know, this year. He's had to battle through that. Friday night, he got in a one-on-one situation with a taller receiver. Some would argue that the taller receiver kind of pushed him out of the way a little bit to go up and get the pass, and he got burned for a touchdown. Right away, all of a sudden he gets the ball knocked loose, and he's in the right spot at the right time. And not only did he have the presence of mind to see open field and pick it up and scoop it up, got a pretty good return and set you up for another score.
You know, it's one of the things I like about our football team is a young man like Malcolm can have a tough moment, but be able to get over that and still contribute the next play or the next series. And he did that on a couple of occasions after that touchdown reception they had over him. And I mentioned that to the team, that's not an easy thing to do for anybody, to have a touchdown pass right in front of the crowd. You're out there in the open as a defensive back, and when a guy beats you and jumps up and takes the ball and scores, that's tough. Other people can make mistakes sometimes in the field. Nobody saw it. When you're a defensive back, everybody sees your mistakes.
Especially when you're one-on-one and you're one-on-one.
That's right. And for him to be able to bounce back and say, okay, he was obviously upset about letting the team score, and, you know, but he bounces right back and makes some key plays that allow us to win that ball game, and that says a lot about him. He's a fierce competitor, a tough kid. You're right, he's battled through some injuries, missed several weeks during the middle part of the year, but he also threw a couple of key blocks on offense for us when he got in the game and gave Jaden a break. So I'm really proud of him. I love coaching him. He's a great kid. He's a team first guy, and I love the fact the way he bounced back was awesome.
A couple other things, you know, defense didn't have the greatest game, allowed some big plays, but man, they made some big defensive plays, forced turnovers at the end of the game, a fumble at the 1 that got knocked out of bounds, where, you know, a lot of guys might have given up on the play. Jaden chased him down and knocked the ball out of bounds from behind, and then you had an interception at the goal line to prevent another score right at the end of the game.
Jaden and Jaden.
Yeah, Jaden Windsor.
Lacey and Windsor. Now the Jaden's made some big plays there, and you know, it's our defenses, I think, had a really good year. They've been very opportunistic. Our turnover ratio, I believe, is like at, I want to say around +12 or +13, which is really good. And you know, even though we had some turnovers, we have more turnovers, I think, this game than any game all year.
I think you're right.
And we still don't have very many, but I think our defense got just as many and got them back for us. You know, they made some big plays. They were opportunistic, as I said, and I love the way that they don't quit either. I mean, even if a series or two goes poorly, they just continue to work, and we're a little thin in places, but I love the resilience of that group as well, and it's been fun to watch. Our defenses, I think this team may have set, I'll have to double check this, may have set a record for 9 games for tackles for loss by a defense. Which means they're getting penetration, they're harassing quarterbacks, they're making plays behind the line, and that's a great stat. That's one of our goals this year, was to do those things, and those kids have bought into it.
This is about a harder hitting team as I think you've had in a while too defensively.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's point to the play you didn't get the ball back, but their big running back has the ball. He's running around the right side. Looks like he's got close to a first down. Gets popped by, I think it was DJ Trimble who hit him, and the ball goes flying about 15 yards in the air and about 10 yards back, and they recovered, but it stalled that drive too.
It did. I agree with you. We've been much more physical this year. I think we've got some kids that, and I think hitting is contagious. I think physicality is contagious. I think once it starts, I think other guys build on that, and I think it started with Xavier. I think that's where it came from the very early part of the season against Haywood, and our kids have responded. And DJ's been a physical player, and Jaden has become a more physical player, and Kyle Hughes and Jack Bunning and all these guys, just Terrell and Alex Blaze, and there's a number of guys stepping up and being physical football players, and even some of our little guys like Adolph have been more physical, and Ben McLaughlin. So I love, we believe that in 5A football, if you're going to be successful, you've got to be physical, and I guess that's true for any level of football, but I think especially in 5A, it's hard to finesse your way to victory in 5A football because so many teams are physical at this level, and if you've just got amazing skill kids across the board, maybe you can finesse some people by outscoring them, but most teams don't have those kind of people. You've got to be a physical team up front on both sides of the ball, and that's the kind of team we've got to be successful. And if our defense wasn't physical this year, we wouldn't be sitting here playing Week 10.
Physical play is a perfect segue to your coming up opponent Saturday afternoon. Long road trip. We're used to those. But long road trip to Morris. It's about 4.5 hours, and you play against a program that has a rich, deep tradition of deep playoff runs in Class 5A. They've been in Class 4A a couple times, but Morris 7-2, a very tough opponent in the first round.
It is. And you and I talked off camera beforehand that when you're 5-4, you can't complain about your draw. And that's we've got a 7-2 Morris team, and I think you said it. Very rich tradition of football success. They're title winners before. They have play a good, tough brand of football. Speaking of physical, like you said, they're physical, and we're excited. It's we've had the opportunity to play some of the best teams in the state of Illinois the last few years, including Sacred Heart Griffin, a Galesburg team which is on maybe having their best season in 25 or 30 years. Champaign Central went to the semis last year, having one of their best playoff runs. We've battled with the Metamoras, who were state champions before, and we've had to face, sooner or later, if you keep making the playoffs, you're going to have to face some of these big dogs like Sacred Heart and Morris and Metamora and whoever else is out there. And so here we go. This is the first time we've met up with the Morris team that we shared a semifinal appearance with in 2007. They were the semis the same year we were, and they eventually played Metamora in the championship. So we're familiar with the program. We've watched them several times over the years in playoff games and championship games, and so it creates a unique challenge for us. I believe that every challenge like a Morris or a Metamora or Sacred Heart makes you a better football program when you have to step up your game, and to be successful or to compete against them, you have to play at a new level. And we've challenged our kids for this week in practice. They're going to have to take their game to another level, and when you're going to be successful in the playoffs, that's what you have to do.
One of the things we can say about them, obviously you probably watched some film and know a little bit, but what I've read is that they're a lot like Marion in the fact that they had some struggles early, but they've really put things together, especially offensively in the last 3 games. And their running game has produced more than 400 yards a game in each of the last 3 games.
Yeah. They're rolling right now, and I think they would look at us and say Marion's rolling right now too.
Right.
And so both teams are playing really well here at the end of the year, so ought to be a good matchup. I never played there, never been to their stadium, which I hear is nice, and so we've got a good game plan. We're excited about what we need to do as a program to try to compete with those guys, and as you said, our guys are kind of road warriors. We're kind of used to traveling, so it is a long trip, but the last 6 or 7 years we've gone on a lot of long trips, and I think our guys will be ready and handle it well. And it's funny watching their reaction at our playoff pairings party. A lot of them don't know a lot about Morris, but when they saw the distance they had to travel, there was little or no reaction. It was just kind of what we do.
Yeah.
So we have an itinerary, we have a good plan, our kids travel well, so we'll get on that bus Saturday morning and go play.
we have to ask this question, but how much you think, we talked about this a little bit after the game Friday, how much you think the schedule you had, especially early in the season, Galesburg, Haywood, even Dunlap, who's a playoff team, Althoff, those games, how much do you think those help now this part of the season?
Well, they have to help some. I mean, those kinds of ball games, if you can survive them and you can use those kinds of competitive games to grow as a program, and I think our kids have done that. I think they've seen a different level of play, and they've tried to match that, the way they prepare, the way they play on Friday, and I think it's part of the growing pains of a program. When you raise the level of your schedule, you're going to have to grow as a program to match that level. And I think the 5-4 record's an indication. We've had some growing pains this year in matching the competitive nature of our opponents, but let's hope it's going to continue to pay off for us, not only in this playoff game, but in future seasons.
All right, it's Marion and Morris at Morris, 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon. Don't think you have to worry about fans. They always seem to make the trip.
They'll make it.
For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich. This is Marion head coach Kerry Martin.